Okay, I'm back. Um, this is going to be the Spanish sentence patterns, what I've just arbitrarily labeled 10 through 15. Um, yeah, so 6 patterns. And again, there's some of them are just variances of other patterns. Okay, so before we get started, let me scroll a little bit here. And we're going to introduce the reflexive pronouns in Spanish, right? Like the reflexive pronouns in English are like myself, yourself, himself, herself, ourselves, yourselves, their selves. Okay, but in English, I mean in Spanish, they're very similar to the other pronouns. Notice that me is reflexive. Basically, it's myself, but it's just like the me from the direct object pronoun. And the same thing with the te. And then the same thing with the nos. So the nos, as you can see, for except for the object of the preposition, the myself, the yourself, and the ourselves is going to be the same pronoun as it is for the direct object and the indirect object, right? It's going to be me, and then over here it's going to be te, and then te, and then for the ourselves it's going to be nos, and nos, no problem. And so the only difference for the reflexive pronouns is instead of having like le, it's going to be se. Instead of having les, it's just going to be se, right? So it's just se. Se basically is the mark of the reflexive. Okay. And so you have no you don't have to worry about gender, and you don't have to worry about number. Se is singular and se is plural. Se is masculine, se is feminine. Okay, se is masculine, se is feminine. So again, grammar, Latin, Spanish has a lot of grammar, right? In English, well, in English we do have different reflexive pronouns. It's myself, yourself. It's not me, you, him, right? But Spanish, even though there's a lot of pattern, a lot of grammar, the variance is very small. And so once you remember like this row, it's very easy to then remember this row and this row and this row. Okay, so this is the reflexive pronoun. And the reason we're talking about the reflexive pronouns is because today I'm gonna show you patterns with the reflexive verbs in Spanish. The reflexive verbs in Spanish. And so let me give you some common reflexive verbs here. Levantarse, like to get out of bed, right? Or just to get up, like get up off the floor. Let's say you fell down. Levantarse. And notice that in Spanish, this is the infinitive version, and the se marks the reflexive. So in the infinitive, levantarse, to get up, right? The levantar is the infinitive marker, right? The AR or the ER or the IR is the infinitive marker. Here we have an ER verb, poner. Okay, I didn't put any IR verbs just because they're not as common as the AR verbs. And then the se marks the reflexive part. Okay, so to get up, right? So yeah, acostarse is to go to bed. Ducharse is to shower, basically, or to take a shower. Cepillar is to brush your teeth or to brush one's teeth, or you could be somebody else's teeth, but when you're using it with se, it's the person doing it. It's the subject is brushing his or her teeth or their teeth, depending on what the subject is. Peinarse is to comb, so to comb oneself. Peinarse. Lavarse is to wash or to bathe oneself. And ponerse is to become, right? It's one meaning of poner. Poner also has to place, to put, but poner can also be to become. Okay. Now I separated these because these we generally use with intransitive verbs. So we're just saying something about the subject, like I got up at 7 a.m. You're not doing that to anybody else. It's just describing what the subject did. You're describing that the subject, I got up. Me acosté a las 7. I went to bed at 7. Again, it's just describing what the subject is doing. I bathed this morning. Again, you're just describing what the subject is doing, right? You're not doing it to anybody else. But, and these could also be used as intransitives, but they're also very common use transitive. So you have some direct object. For example, I brushed my hair this morning. So that my hair will be the direct object, right? Uh, sorry, I brushed my teeth. Cepillarse is to brush teeth. Peinarse is to brush hair. So I brushed my teeth this morning. So the teeth is the direct object. I combed my hair this morning. So my hair will be the direct object. And I washed my car. My car will be the direct object. But you can also obviously wash yourself. And then we wouldn't need to say it because the se means that the subject did it to himself or herself or themselves, right? Okay, so, and then poner is to become. It has a special use, and we'll talk about that. This is the last paradigm, or this is the last pattern we'll see. Okay, so let's look at the first sentence pattern. The first sentence pattern is subject pronoun. It could also be a name. It could also be a personal. It can be a proper noun like Maria, Carlos. It could be somebody's name, right? Proper nouns are names. Basically, it's the same thing. So, and then a reflexive pronoun, right? The reflexive pronoun, which we covered up here, these. Me, te, se, no, se, or se. And remember, the reflexive pronoun means we're talking about the subject. So me here is talking about yo, okay? Te is talking about tú. Se is talking about ella. Nos is talking about nosotros. Se is talking about usted. So I myself, you yourself, she herself, we ourselves, you guys yourselves, they themselves, right? That's what we're saying here. They themselves, not their selves. I think I said earlier. They themselves, right? Okay, so that's what this is the reflexive in Spanish. It has a slightly different use than English, so pay attention. Okay, so now subject pronoun yo, tú, ella. Reflexive pronoun me, te, se. Intransitive verb, so we're not going to have a direct object. And then you may have some kind of time adverb or some kind of time phrase if you want. You don't need to, but you can. Okay, so for example, let's do some examples. Yo me levanto temprano los sábados. So I don't need los sábados. I'm going to take it away because I show you plenty of examples without it. So yo me levanto temprano means I get up early. I get up early, right? It doesn't have the same meaning as the English I myself get up early. It's just because the levanto is an intransitive verb. So because it's intransitive, because it's a reflexive verb, we throw in the me. We throw in the me because of levanto, right? So notice that we took away the levantarse. Once you take away the se, you have to conjugate the verb. This is, I didn't put levantar. Oh, here's levantar. Sorry. Once you take away the se and you put in the reflexive pronoun, you still have to conjugate for the subject, levantar. So if I say yo, it's levanto. But since it's a reflexive pronoun, since it's a reflexive verb, I have to throw in the reflexive pronoun me, which is basically I or myself. So yo me levanto. Yo me levanto. And then the se goes away because the se turns into me. The se turns into me. It turns into the reflexive pronoun. Okay. So, and then you conjugate levantar the way you would if it wasn't a reflexive pronoun. Yo me levanto, tú te levantas, ella se levanta, nosotros nos levantamos, like that. You still have to conjugate the verb. Okay, so here we go. Yo me levanto temprano. Temprano is early, so there's a time expression or there's a time adverb. Tú te levantas tarde, right? Okay. Now, notice that, so let me continue and then I'll make my point. Ella se levanta a las 7, at 7. She, reflexive pronoun, because this is a reflexive verb, and so this se means her, or it also means you guys, or it also means they. Okay. Nosotros nos levantamos temprano todos los días. We get up early every day. You're not saying literal translation. You're not saying we ourselves get up early. I told you, don't do literal translations. Just understand the meaning. And the meaning of this is we get up early every day. It's just that the grammar is different than the English, and we throw in the reflexive pronoun because levantarse is a reflexive verb, and that's going to force us to use the reflexive pronoun. But the meaning doesn't change. We get up early every day is the same meaning as the Spanish. Nosotros nos levantamos temprano todos los días. We're not adding anything. We're not adding emphasis. We're not adding clarifying. We're not doing that. We're saying the exact same thing. It's just that this grammar of the levantarse grammar, which is the reflexive one, is going to force us to add a different piece of grammar into our sentence than the English doesn't require. Because, yeah, getting up is not a reflexive pronoun in English. There's no such, right? That's not a reflexive verb in English, I should say. So we don't need that extra grammar. Okay, so ustedes se levantan tarde. You guys get up early. Ellos se levantan a las 7. They get up at 7. Okay, but because you're using a reflexive verb, because you're using levantarse, you must throw in the reflexive pronouns here, and it goes after the subject. Okay, that's sentence pattern number 1. I hope that wasn't too confusing. Right, and I put in parentheses because you don't need it. Like I said, like here, I didn't put anything. Well, I put temprano. Sorry, I put early here. So here. Okay. But I could say something like, I could say this. Yo me levanté. This is past tense. And I don't need to say early here. It would just mean I got up. Right? This in the past tense. This would be I got up. So I don't need an adverb. But with the present tense, present tense, you're talking about regular activity, habitual activity. So it's usually you're going to need some kind of adverb to mark that habitualness, that regularity. And so that's why the adverb is usually thrown in. But if you're talking about the past tense, we don't need to talk about regularity. We can just talk about a single moment. So then we just say yo me levanté, which means just I got up, right? But yo me levanto temprano means, like, if you just say I got up, like I get up, that's just weird, right? Even in English, it's weird. You wouldn't say I get up. You'd have to say I get up early, or I get up every day, or I get up every day at 7, or I get up after I get knocked down. Right? It's a regularity thing. And same with the Spanish. So that's why in the present tense, levanto, levantas, all of these are the present tense. You're going to probably need an adverb phrase to show the regularity. But in the past tense, you wouldn't need it. So here I can just say yo me levanté, I got up. Okay. That is the first one. Subject, reflexive pronoun, why did I do this in blue? Reflexive pronoun, and then the reflexive verb conjugated as any regular verb would be. Conjugated, this is the past tense conjugation. This is the present tense conjugation. Okay, that's sentence pattern number 1. I hope that makes sense because we're going to build on this. Now, let's go to sentence pattern number 2. Here, this is the exact same thing. Here we have a time adverb, right? Like tarde is a time adverb. Temprano, early, is a time adverb. Tarde is late, is a time adverb. Or we have a phrase, adverb phrase, like a las 7, at 7, right? Todos los días, every day. Todos los días, every day. This is an adverb phrase. So now, it's not frequency adverb. Frequency adverbs in English are like always, never, sometimes, rarely, occasionally, often, or often. As most people say. I say often. I've always said often. I don't know. I think I'm wrong. Anyway, so when you want to throw in a frequency adverb, this is the most common place to throw it. Immediately, I say throw it, but put it in to after the subject. So if you're going to, and you can still use a time phrase or an adverb phrase at the end. You don't need to. Okay, so here's the frequency adverb. Siempre means always. Yo siempre me levanto temprano. I always get up early. Okay? I always get up early. And I can even say I always get up early, and then I can say on Saturdays. So we would just say los sábados. We wouldn't say on. And then sábados has an accent. Yes, thank you. Okay. So I can just say I always get up early, or I always get up early on Saturdays. And just to say on Saturdays, we just say los sábados. You don't need a preposition. It's the Saturdays, basically we're saying. But again, don't do literal translations. Just learn the grammar and learn the meaning, the equivalent meaning. Okay, so I always get up early on Saturdays. The frequency adverb is here before the reflexive pronoun. Tú nunca, nunca is never. Tú nunca te levantas tarde. You never get up late. You never, frequency adverb, reflexive pronoun te, referring to tú, and then levantas is tú levantas is present tense, and then late. Okay, next one. Ella típicamente, typically, the mente is the sign of the adverb in Spanish. The mente is the sign of the adverb in Spanish. So típicamente, typically, obviously, typically, she typically gets up at 7 o'clock. There it is. And the se refers to ella because it's a reflexive pronoun. Reflexive in the sense of a reflection. If you look in the mirror, what do you see? You see your reflection. It's a reflection of you. So if you look in the mirror, you see yourself. If I look in the mirror, I see myself, right? That's why it's called the reflexive pronoun. It's pointing back to the subject. And in the case of the example of the analogy you hear, the subject is looking into the mirror. If she is looking to the mirror, it's going to it's going to be she herself, he himself. But in Spanish, it's the shorter pronoun here, like se. That's it. So ella siempre se levanta a las 7. Again, don't think of this as herself. It's just because levanta requires a reflexive pronoun to express the same meaning that we do in English without the reflexive pronoun. In English, we wouldn't use a reflexive pronoun here. We would say she typically gets up at 7 o'clock. There's no she herself, right? There's not. So in English, we don't express this statement with a reflexive pronoun. In Spanish, we do because the verb is a reflexive verb, and that forces the reflexive pronoun to be used. But the meaning is the same as the English without the reflexive pronoun. That's why I say literal translations are going to harm you more than they're going to help you. So I recommend don't do them. Just understand the patterns and understand what the meaning is, what the translation meaning is. Okay, Maria. So again, I told you we could just throw in somebody's name. Siempre se levanta temprano los sábados. Maria always gets up early on Saturdays. Again, same pattern. Nosotros a veces, sometimes, nos levantamos, sometimes we get up early, temprano, on Sundays. Temprano is the adverb here, so let's put it in blue. Okay, early on Saturdays. Ustedes rarely se levantan, get up late. You guys rarely get up late. Okay. Ellos casi nunca, casi is almost never, casi is almost, and nunca is never. So almost never. You guys almost never get up early. You guys almost never get up early. Okay, so sometimes I can have a time adverb like temprano and an adverb phrase like los domingos. Sometimes I can just have the time adverb. Sometimes I can just have the adverb phrase. And sometimes I can have neither one of those, right? I don't need any one of those, but if I'm in the present tense discusses habitual, regular activities. So most likely you're going to need this to complete the thought. But if you're in the past tense, as I showed already, we don't need the adverb phrase. We don't need it. We often don't need it. Okay. That's sentence number 2, right? Okay. Pattern number 2. So pattern number 1 and pattern number 2 are very similar. All I did was throw in a frequency adverb, and I'm showing you where you would throw it in, where you would put it in. I like this phrase, throw it in, like we throw it into the sentence. Okay, sentence pattern number 3. By the way, I don't know about, this is intransitive, right? Intransitive. There's no direct object. Notice that there's no direct object after because it's an intransitive verb. This is the first group here. These are the ones I said we usually use as intransitives. These ones can be used as intransitives, but they're very commonly used as transitives. So we're going to now do the sentence pattern that shows now when you have a transitive reflexive verb. Transitive. And for the R's example, we're going to use cepillarse, which is to brush oneself. right? So, but okay, so cepillar is to brush, okay, or to like your teeth here. Okay, so yo me cepillo. Again, once we get the verb is cepillarse, it's a reflexive verb, and here we're using it as a transitive. So we're going to have a direct object noun because it's a transitive verb now. What is it that you're brushing? You're brushing your own teeth? Are you brushing her teeth? Are you brushing your shoes? Like, what are you brushing, right? So we're going to have a direct object. And then again, you could have a time adverb or not. You can have an adverb phrase or not, but this is where it would go. Most commonly, this is where it goes. Okay, yo, I, me, this is me, referring to me. I only need it because the verb requires it, not because I'm using it as an intensifier, not because I'm using it as a typically English reflexive pronoun. Yo me cepillo los dientes. Los dientes. Whose teeth? My own teeth, right? Because the reflexive pronoun is saying I'm doing something. It's the action is just reflecting back to myself. You could say yo me cepillo mis dientes, my teeth. You can say that. Yo me cepillo mis dientes, but it's unnecessary. Because the reflexive pronoun tells me it's about you. The yo, it's about the yo, it's about I. That's what it tells you, unless otherwise stated. So, for example, if I say to you, you shower every day. No. Yeah. If I say to you, you shower every day, who's doing the showering? You are. And who are you showering? Sounds like a weird question, right? Like, what do you mean, who am I showering? I'm showering myself. Yeah, but it doesn't need to be that, right? I can say you shower your dog every day, right? It's not, it's only on the assumption that when nothing is there, that it refers back to you. So if I say you shower every day, it's understood that it's you shower yourself every day. We don't need yourself because it's understood, right? But if I don't mean yourself, if I say you shower your dog every day, then I'm going to say your dog because it's not understood. If I leave that out, nobody's going to think it's your dog. Everybody's going to think it's yourself, right? So this is the same thing in Spanish. You don't need to say I don't need to say I brush my teeth. Like in English, we would say I brush my teeth every day. We would throw it in, I brush my teeth every day. But because the Spanish is using the reflexive verb, it's understood that it's your own teeth. So we're really just saying the teeth, but understood as your own teeth, right? So yo me cepillo los dientes todos los días. I brush my teeth every day. The meaning, the translation is my teeth, right? But we wouldn't, literal translation, I myself brush the teeth all the days, right? That's not going to help you. It can help you a little bit, but it's like ridiculous to do that. It's just better to understand the meaning and understand the structure of what you need to do in Spanish. So, and this is the structure, and you know what kind of meanings this gives. When you see sentences using this structure, you know the meanings in English, right? And that's all we care about here. Okay. Second one, tú te cepillas los dientes. You brush your teeth. You brush your teeth. Again, we don't need to say tus dientes. That would be your teeth, literally. We just say the teeth because we know it's your teeth because the reflexive pronoun says we're talking about you and your stuff. Ella se cepilla los dientes. She brushes her teeth. María se cepilla los dientes todos los días. Maria brushes her teeth every day. Nosotros nos cepillamos los dientes. Again, I'm reminding you that you're conjugating the verb as if it's a regular verb, right? You still have to conjugate it for the present, the past, and you still have to conjugate it for the subject. Here's nosotros. Ustedes se cepillan los dientes. You guys brush your teeth. Ellos se cepillan los dientes. They brush their teeth. That's the pattern. Right? Easy peasy, transitive verb. And this is the direct object. The direct object is here. The direct object noun. We haven't talked about pronouns here, and we're not going to. This is going to be the next video. Okay, so this pattern, subject, reflexive pronoun, and the reflexive verb used as a transitive verb. The other one was intransitive, right? Okay. And next one now. Next one. 4. Same thing, except now we're throwing in a frequency adverb. Same pattern, same as 3, but we're throwing the frequency adverb in here. That's all we're doing. Okay. And it's basically what we did earlier. Yo siempre me cepillo los dientes. I always brush my teeth. And notice I didn't use any time adverb because the siempre means always. And so we understand always doesn't need to be modified or qualified in any way. You can't say every day. You can't say every morning. You can't say every Saturday. But if you don't, you're still making perfect sense if you say I always brush my teeth, right? Okay, so yo siempre me cepillo los dientes. Ella siempre se cepilla los dientes a las 7, at 7. She always brushes her teeth at 7. María no se cepilla los dientes. Here I threw in the no, but notice where the no goes. To make the verb negative, we throw it in before the reflexive pronoun. María no se cepilla los dientes. Maria doesn't brush her teeth. She's a yuck mouth. She's a yuck mouth. Okay. María no se cepilla los dientes. And if this was never, María nunca se cepilla los dientes. So the frequency adverb will still go there, obviously. But the no to make the negative is an adverb. No is an adverb, by the way. So just so if you've forgotten or if you didn't know, no is still an adverb. So this is in the same location. So maybe I'll put it in blue, but I didn't put it in blue because it's really, we think of it as part of the verb, but it's an adverb that makes the verb negative. Okay, so no se cepilla los dientes. Ustedes casi nunca was almost never, se cepillan los dientes en la noche. This is at night. You guys almost never brush your teeth at night. Another group of yuck mouths. Okay, and then ellos a veces, sometimes, no, I'll put the no again in blue because it is an adverb. A veces no se cepillan los dientes. You guys sometimes don't brush your teeth. Ellos a veces, they, not you guys, they sometimes don't brush their teeth, right? They sometimes don't brush their teeth. Okay, that's it, right? That's number 4. We only have 2 more to go. Number 4, and all the difference between 1 and 2, the only difference between 1 and 2 is we threw in the frequency adverb here. The only difference between 3 and 4 is we threw in the frequency adverb here. Okay, now 5. 5 is different. 5, we're going back to this adverb here that I showed you because it's special. This reflective adverb is a little different. And notice that here after the verb we put nothing because it's you could have an adverb, but we don't have an object because it's an intransitive verb. We're using these intransitively, meaning we have no direct object. It doesn't mean we can't have an adverb. It doesn't mean we can't have an adverb phrase or a prepositional phrase. We can't, but there's no direct object. Here in the parentheses, I put what could be the direct object, right? Like teeth, hair, oneself, or your dog. It could be your dog, right? So that's the direct object. For ponerse, I'm putting either an adjective or a noun. So this is different. You see this is different. The grammar is going to be different. And you're saying something slightly different. Ponerse means to become. Again, poner also means to put something. But to put something is not reflexive, but to become is reflexive. Even though poner means to put or to place, like to place down or to put it down, to put it somewhere. But ponerse is the reflexive to become. Okay, so now let's see why it's different. Let's see why this reflexive version is different. Subject, and by the way, I didn't say what I wanted to say earlier. Let me say it now. We don't need the subject pronoun because the me tells me who the subject is, right? Because the me is reflexive and me refers to yo. So I would just say, me cepillo los dientes todos los días. Me cepillo los dientes todos los días. If you throw in the yo, you're doing it again for emphasizing or for clarifying. For emphasizing, for clarifying. We've seen that already, this idea, if you watch the other video about clarifying or emphasizing phrases. When there is no ambiguity and me leaves no room for ambiguity, can only refer to yo, then the yo is only being used to emphasize or to clarify. But when you use se, that could be he, it could be she, it could be usted, it could be ustedes, and it could be ellos. So in these cases, this is, if you throw the ella, it's probably for clarifying. Ella se cepilla los dientes, pero él no se cepilla los dientes, right? She brushes her teeth, but he doesn't brush, right? So then when you use the ella, it's most likely for clarifying who you are talking about or whom you are talking about, right? But with the nos, it's unambiguous, so you don't need the nosotros, and most commonly you wouldn't use the nosotros. Nos cepillamos los dientes, we brush our teeth. But to emphasize, right, if somebody's like doubting whether you brush it, like, no, nosotros nos cepillamos los dientes. Yeah, we, right, to emphasize that we do it. Okay, now let's get back to 5. Subject pronoun, if needed, right, or if you're emphasizing or clarifying. Reflexive pronoun, pointing to the subject. Reflexive verb poner, or I'm going to put ponerse because that's the verb, ponerse. Okay, but we have to conjugate it. That's why I put it in these single brackets. You have to conjugate it, and you're going to take away the se and then conjugate it. You could throw in an adjective or a noun afterwards, and then you could have an adverb phrase or an adverb clause afterwards. I put in parentheses because you don't need it, but it's very common. So let's see some examples. Yo me, reflexive. Let's make it purple. Puse. This is past tense, by the way, of poner. So it might not. Pálido, de susto, from fear. De susto is from fear. Pálido is pale, like when you go pale when you see a ghost. Right? I became pallid. I became pale with fear. I became, in the past tense, I became pale with fear. Okay, next one. You became pale. Sorry. You put on the shirt. You put on the shirt. Not you became the shirt. Here's you put on the shirt. You put on the shirt. Remember, I said poner can be to put on, right? You put on the shirt. Okay. So this is a different meaning. This is to become, and this is to put on, but it's the same word spelling. Okay. Ella se puso, she put on, ella se puso, she became pale, when she saw the ghost. When she saw the ghost. Vio is past tense of to see, or of see. So this is the adverb clause example. I don't need it, but it's common to use it. Also, adverb phrase like with fear or from fear is very common. Here's one with a regular present tense. Maria se pone pálida. Maria becomes pale when she sees a cockroach, cucaracha. When she sees a roach or a cockroach, we say cucaracha. Okay. María se pone pálida cuando ve una cucaracha. When she sees a cockroach. That's when she becomes, and so reflexive pronoun. So here I'm using again, it doesn't matter. The sentence pattern works for present tense, like like pone, or it works for puso for past tense. There's no distinction here in the tenses. The pattern is applicable for whatever tense you're using here. Okay, nosotros, nos, reflexive pronoun, pusimos los zapatos. Here's, again, put on, as in this one, put on the shirt. Pusimos los zapatos. Los zapatos are the shoes, but of course it's our shoes, right? It could be somebody else's shoes, but most normal translation here is our shoes. We put on our shoes, or just the shoes. Okay. Ustedes se ponen pálidos porque son tímidos. you guys become, present tense, se ponen, you guys become pale because you are shy, right? You guys become pale because you are shy. Okay, maybe when you talk to pretty girls, you become pale because you are shy. Okay, so this is the reflexive pronoun poner. And this same pattern where you throw in an adjective or a noun because something you're changing into something, works for these verbs also. Volverse is to turn into, or to turn back into, kind of, which has the idea of to become. El psicólogo se volvió loco. The psychologist became crazy. The psychologist became crazy, right? Se volvió is to change into something, right? So volverse. Hacerse, to make into, which has the same idea as to become. María se hizo abogada. Maria became a lawyer, right? She worked at becoming something and she became it. So Maria se hizo abogada. We use hacerse in this sense. This is the past tense of hacerse. Okay. Llegar, hacer, to become, to attain, to become something. So it's the same idea as to attain. Pablo llegó a ser abogado también. Pablo also reached this change of becoming a lawyer, right? Pablo also became a lawyer. Also is también, right? So llegó, like you reach your goal, right? In that sense, to accomplish something. Pasar a ser, to get into, which is also to become. Carlos pasó a ser presidente. Carlos got to be president, right? So Carlos became president. Pasó a ser, right? And notice this construction, a hacer, and we keep it, a hacer, right? Okay. But here we don't have a hacer. The se is here, right? The se is here, and so notice where the reflexive pronoun is. But roughly it's the same pattern. But I wanted to give it to you because, yeah, if I start giving you patterns for every slight modification, this is going to be a long series. Okay, so here's the reflexive pronoun. We took it out. We disjoined it from the verb, and we put it before the verb, depending on the subject. And here, él requires se, and Maria requires se. But if I use another subject, it might be me, yo, me, or tú, te, right? Depends. Okay, and here, the hacer, this construction, to llegar a ser, right? This phrase here, we keep the hacer. We keep the hacer. Okay, that's it. That's the only real difference between these, the first two and the last two. But it's the same idea, same sentence, pattern idea. And after following that, you can have some adjective or some noun. Okay. Okay, last pattern. I hope this is not too fast. Again, this is not meant for beginning Spanish students, but since I'm explaining everything in English, I feel like you should follow my English explanations, no problem. But implementing the Spanish is a different matter. That depends on your level. Okay, another one. And then I'll talk about what I'm going to talk about in the future, in future videos. 6, subject pronoun, transitive verb, and I'm talking about transitive verbs of like mental transitive verbs like believe, trust, think, know, understand, these kinds of verbs, transitive verbs. And then a that clause followed by that. So I know that you are a liar. I, subject, know, transitive verb of some kind of like mental state. And then that clause, that you are a liar. I know that you are a liar. This is the kind of examples we're going to do today. Okay. Yo creo, I believe, que tú eres mentiroso. The that in Spanish is the que. The que can also be a question word, what, but it can also be a pronoun that, right? Okay, so que. And then this is just a regular sentence. Tú eres mentirosa. You are a liar. It's in the indicative. It's just a regular statement in an indicative mood, which just states facts about the world or states falsehoods about the world. You are a liar. Tú eres mentirosa. You are a liar. So I believe that you are a liar. Okay. Tú crees, you believe, que ella es tu amiga. She is your friend. You believe that she is your friend, right? Ella es tu amiga. Que ella es tu amiga is the that clause, but in Spanish we use the que. You can call it a que clause if you want. Okay, so tú crees que ella es tu amiga. Nosotros pensamos, we think, que él es malo, that he is bad. We think he is bad. And the sentence is, él es malo, he is bad. We're just throwing a que in front of it. Just like English, right? English, we say something like, you lied to me. Or I can put that in front of it and say that you lied to me. And that would make it a noun clause. So I know that you lied to me, right? You lied to me is a sentence, independent clause, you lied to me. If I throw the word that in front of the independent clause, I make it a noun clause. So it's just a noun. It's just a giant noun. It's not a sentence anymore. It's just a giant noun. So I still need a subject and a verb, and then I stick my giant noun as the direct object. So I, subject, know, verb, transitive verb. So I need a direct object for the transitive verb know. What do you know? That you lied to me. That's the direct object, that whole thing. Just like I say, I know Susie, Susie is the direct object. I know English, English is the direct object. So whatever I put after the direct object, in this case, is my direct, whatever I put after the transitive verb know is my direct object. And since I'm putting that you lied to me, that is the direct object, that whole thing. It's not an independent clause anymore because the word that changes it into a noun clause. Okay. So ellos creen, they believe, that she is your friend. Ella es tu amiga. She is your friend. Que ella es tu amiga, that she is your friend. And that's what they believe. They believe that she is your friend. What do they believe? That she is your friend. ¿Qué creen ella? ¿Qué creen ellos? What do they believe? ¿Qué creen ellos? Que ella es tu amiga, that she is your friend. Okay. And last example, yo creo que tú no eres mentirosa. Here I just put a negative statement, but that doesn't change anything. We just still the same grammar. We just made a negative. We made the that clause negative. Keep in mind, we didn't make the main clause negative. We didn't do that. Well, I'm not doing that. I'm only making the that clause negative. The that clause, the verb in the that clause negative. Doesn't change anything as far as this grammar. Right? We're still stating facts. So this is still an indicative statement. Indicative statements are facts about the world or falsehoods about the world or describing how the world is or isn't essentially. And if I say I believe, I'm telling you I believe. I'm telling you this is true. I believe something. I'm telling you what I'm saying. I believe. I'm going to tell you what I believe now. I believe this. And this doesn't change the grammar of the yo creo. Okay. And I'm going to make a point. I'm going to draw a distinction soon. So this is why I'm like harping over this. So to make the negative verb inside of that clause, we just do what we normally do. So, tú no eres mentirosa. Okay, that's it. Those are the 6 sentence patterns for today. I'm just using the indicative mood. The indicative mood verbs are verbs that talk about things as they are or things as you're claiming they are, but you might be saying something false. So if I say, for example, today is Sunday, today's actually Saturday as I record this. If I say today is Sunday, I'm saying something false, but I'm attempting to describe the world as it is, or I'm attempting to mislead you about how the world actually is. Okay, so indicative sentence, I am a man, you are a woman, today's Sunday, today's not Sunday, you never help me, you always help me, she is a little biatch, she's not a little biatch, she's a big biatch, like whatever you're saying, it's an indicative statement. When you learn a language, when you learn English, and when you're making statements in the indicative mood, verbs have a quality called mood. Just like verbs have the quality, another mood would be the interrogative mood, which is normally used for questions. So if I say, how are you? I'm using a different mood and it's going to require different grammar. Or is she here, right? She is here, indicative statement, indicative mood, verb, indicative mood, the grammar is indicative. Is she here, interrogative mood. So that's why we flop around the verb subject sometimes. Okay. Another mood is the subjunctive mood. The subjunctive mood in English is commonly used when we make wishes. Like we don't say, I wish I was rich. I mean, people do say that. That's because they don't know the proper way to say it. it's I wish I were rich. We use the simple past tense to talk about present tense time because the subjunctive mood requires that. And we use were, and were is special. We always use were. I were, you were, he were, she were, they were in the subjunctive. It doesn't matter that it's singular I. It's not going to be was. It's going to be were. Okay, so but the subjunctive mood is different. And Spanish uses the subjunctive mood more than English does, right? And so when these verbs, right now, yo creo, indicative mood, tú crees, indicative mood, nosotros pensamos, indicative mood. These are all indicative mood, indicative mood. But if you make them into something that requires the subjunctive mood, then you're going to need to change the verb in the that clause. So let me give you an example. We're not going to go into it today. I just want to give you an example of why I'm harping on that you're making indicative statements here and that this verb is also indicative. Now, yo dudo is I doubt. I doubt is one of the common triggers for the subjunctive mood. When you say I doubt and then you have a that clause, the that clause is going to be in the subjunctive mood. The dudo is not subjunctive. Dudo means I doubt. That's indicative mood. But that kind of that verb is going to trigger the subjunctive mood in the that clause. So, yo dudo que ella sea tu amiga. Not ella es. Not ella es tu amiga. That's indicative mood. But ella sea, that's subjunctive mood because of the doubt, right? So, for example, I hope they won the game. I wish they had won the game. Notice that I hope does not trigger the subjunctive in English, so we use a simple past tense. The simple past tense to refer to something in the past. But the wish does trigger the subjunctive mood. So that's why you have to say had won, even though you're still talking about the past time, but you need the past perfect. So in English, the past perfect tense is used to talk about a past time. And in the hope doesn't trigger the subjunctive, so just use regular past tense to talk about the past time. So the hope is indicative, triggers the hope, keeps us in the indicative mood here, but the wish takes us to the subjunctive mood here. That's the difference. So that's why sea here is subjunctive, because the doubt triggers the subjunctive mood. No creen, which is basically doubt. They don't believe. They kind of doubt. It triggers the subjunctive mood. So that's why subjunctive mood here. Okay. All of that is going to come. This is just like a preview of what's coming. And just to keep in mind why we're doing what we're doing, these verbs are not triggering the subjunctive. So these verbs are all in the present indicative mood. They're not subjunctive. They're not subjunctive verbs. They're not subjunctive mood verbs. They're indicative mood verbs. When you say dudo, I doubt, you are now in the subjunctive mood verb. You need a subjunctive mood verb, and that's it. But we're not going to go into that grammar yet. That's that's like more advanced grammar. I'm doing sentence structures, and this sentence structure is the same, whether it's subjunctive mood or not. Notice that subject, verb, that clause, right? And this is the same, subject, verb, that clause. So this is good for indicative mood and subjunctive mood. But when we get into the finer details of using the indicative mood or the subjunctive mood or the interrogative mood or the imperative mood, give command, then we're talking about fine details. And then you're talking about like high level, like mid level, at the very least, intermediate grammar and maybe advanced grammar. Okay, but yeah, so for now we're doing just the patterns. Okay, so let me just put this. So verbs have what we call moods, and the most common ones are the ones that we learn almost always are the indicative mood, right? For like statements, whether true or false about the world. We have the interrogative mood, which are basically questions. We have the imperative mood, which are basically commands, like go make me a sandwich. And then we have the subjunctive mood, which has a lot of purposes. I don't want to list them all. The subjunctive mood has like demands, expressing doubt, expressing necessity, expressing wishes, expressing untrue conditionals, right? There's a whole bunch. So hypotheticals, I'll just put hypotheticals. So, and English has a lot of uses too, but Spanish more so. So the subjunctive mood is this grammar here is not part of the sentence patterns series that I'm making. These, because the patterns will fit all of these moods. It's just that when you get into advanced grammar, we will talk about more of it. Or when we do, maybe I'll do an intermediate and advanced grammar series where we talk about the niceties or the fine points of this kind of grammar here. Okay. All right. That's it. I hope this helped. I don't think I've said anything egregiously wrong. I kind of mumble as a normal speaker, so sometimes my Spanish is mumbly, but my English is also mumbly. I'm making up words now, mumbly. All right, I'll continue. So this takes us to 15 sentence patterns. I'll do 5 more sentence patterns in a few days, and I don't think I've covered the possessive adjectives like mi casa, my house, tu casa, your house, right? Su casa, his house or her house, right? I haven't covered those yet, because I haven't needed to, and because I've intentionally kept it out. Because yeah, we don't need to overdo it. We're learning sentence patterns, and the sentence patterns, if I can teach it to you with less grammar, the better. Okay. All right, that's it. I'm gonna ramble on if I don't. See you guys later. I'm gonna stop sharing and see ya.